Welcome back to Echoes of Egypt. First of all, I have to apologize because I disappeared and it has been very long since last episode. I've been really busy at work and also moving to this new place and studio. So, let's get started. In March 2021, the whole world was watching as the massive ship Ever Given got stuck in the Suez Canal, affecting global trade.
Now it's one of the world's most important shipping routes and it's blocked. A giant container ship ran aground in the Suez Canal after losing power.
Hopes are rising that the Suez Canal in Egypt may soon be reopened after an enormous container ship blocked the canal.
The immediate crisis of the Suez Canal blockage has ended, but the battle over damages is just beginning.
For 6 days, over 400 ships were stuck behind it, causing massive delays. The blockage was estimated to cost global trade between $6 billion to $10 billion a week. This incident shows the importance of the Suez Canal to global commerce, as it's one of the most important trade routes in the world. In this episode, we'll learn more about the history behind this construction and also why it's so important in global commerce. Long before the Suez Canal existed, moving goods between Europe and Asia was a long and dangerous journey. Ships had to sail all the way around Africa in what's called the Cape Route. This added weeks or even months to travel time. The route was risky, expensive, and exposed traders to storms, pirates, etc. The idea of a canal connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, and by extension the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean, is much older than the modern Suez Canal. Ancient writers like Aristotle tells us that the Egyptian pharaoh Senusert III may have been the first to attempt digging such a canal. However, it was different than the modern Suez Canal. The idea was to link the Red Sea to the Nile River, which then connects to the Mediterranean Sea, creating a shortcut for trade between the east and the west. However, the project was stopped and abandoned completely because it was feared that the seawater might flood the Nile and then damage and affect Egypt's farmlands. Later, Pharaoh Necho II began working on the canal, though it's unclear whether the project was ever completed during his reign or not. The canal was then revived again with Darius I of the Persian Empire, who either completed or reopened the canal again. Moving forward to the Islamic era, the canal was revived again under the Umayyad Caliphate, particularly during the reign of the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. However, it was eventually closed for political reasons. The dream of connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea came alive again in the 19th century through the vision of Ferdinand de Lesseps, a French diplomat in Egypt. However, this time the canal directly connects the Red Sea to the Mediterranean and not through the Nile as in the old canal. He convinced Egypt's ruler at the time, Khedive Said Pasha, to sign an agreement allowing him to create a company, the Suez Canal Company, to build and take control of the Suez Canal for 99 years. The company raised money by selling 400,000 shares, split between French investors and the Egyptian government. This ambitious project promised to change the world trade forever by cutting thousands of kilometers of the journey between Europe and Asia. Just to give you an idea, imagine a ship wants to travel from Port Sudan to Antalya in Turkey. Would only have to travel 2,000 kilometers through the canal. But without the canal, the ship has to travel all the way around Africa in a trip that takes 23,000 kilometers. Construction began in 1859 and lasted for 10 years. While European engineers oversaw the project, the digging was done largely by Egyptian peasants, utilized as cheap labor, many of whom were forced into labor under harsh, deadly conditions. Poor sanitation, disease, brutal workloads, all that led to the deaths of tens of thousands of Egyptians, although the exact number is debated but can go to more than 100,000. The canal was finished at the time of the Khedive Ismail and officially opened in 1869. A festival of unprecedented scope was held by Ismail Pasha, with the world leaders, kings attending. A few years later, Egypt fell into a financial crisis. In 1875, Khedive Ismail sold the country's 44% shares in the canal to Britain for £4 million, handling a large part of the canal to the British control, while France remained the largest shareholder. Though built in Egypt, the Suez Canal was now effectively under European control, and it stays that way for decades. From 1879 to 1882, a revolt started in Egypt, led by Ahmad Urami, aiming to end the Turkish-Albanian control over the country and to end the Imperial British influence over the country. The British were afraid over their financial interest and control over the Suez Canal. So in 1882, Britain invaded Egypt, defeating Robi's army, and they occupied Egypt for more than 70 years. They had military bases around the canal which reached at some point to 80,000 troops after the Second World War. In 1952, the Free Officers' National Movement led by Gamal Abdel Nasser took control over Egypt, ending Muhammad Ali's dynasty and aiming to end foreign control over Egypt. In 1956, Nasser took a bold action that nobody expected. He nationalized the Suez Canal Company, making it under 100% Egyptian control. He declared that in a public speech in Alexandria, which was received in Egypt by happiness, and people saw him as a hero trying to stop decades and even centuries of colonial control, as the canal was built by the blood of Egyptian peasants who were exploited.
Arriving in the Egyptian capital from Alexandria, where he proclaimed his seizure of the Suez Canal Company, President Nasser finds Cairo's population in a veritable nationalistic frenzy. An acclaiming multitude which escorts him like a hero to the presidential palace.
However, to the west, this was a bold seizure of an international asset, and Nasser was acting against international law. As you would expect, France and Britain didn't like that. They held a secret meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister in Sèvres in France. Well, it's not a secret anymore. They didn't know that I'll be talking about it. They formed a coordinated plan, now known as the Sèvres Protocol. According to the agreement, Israel would first invade Sinai, with the excuse of fighting the Palestinian groups in Sinai, even though there were none. They will fight with the Egyptian army, then Britain and France will call for a ceasefire and for both parties to stay away 10 miles from the canal area, in order to put forces to ensure peace in the area. And if Egypt disagreed, it will be an excuse to intervene militarily. The real goal actually was to topple Nasser and to retake control over the canal. The plan was actually followed. Israel attacked Egypt in October 1956, and Egypt disagreed to answer the French and British calls to withdraw from the canal. So they attacked Egypt, occupying the canal region. The crisis drew international condemnation. The US under President Eisenhower and the Soviet Union both pressured the invaders to withdraw.
The British and French governments delivered a 12-hour ultimatum to Israel and Egypt, now followed up by armed attack against Egypt. The United States was not consulted in any way about any phase of these actions, nor were we informed of them in advance. As it is the manifest right of any of these nations to take such decisions and actions, it is likewise our right, if our judgment so dictates, for we do not accept the use of force as a wise or proper instrument for the settlement of international disputes.
The Soviet Union even threatened to bomb London and Paris if they didn't leave Egypt, and the United States threatened with financial sanctions. So Britain, France, and Israel had to pull out. Though Egypt suffered military losses, the crisis was widely seen as a political victory for Nasser. He emerged as a hero in the Arab world, and historians mention that from that time, Britain and France knew that they were no longer the superpowers and they had to take the US consent before such actions. This day marked the first time in modern history Egypt had full control over the Suez Canal, and this is the case till today. In 2014, Egypt launched a new project to expand the Suez Canal by adding a new 35-kilometer bypass parallel to the existing waterway. The project was completed in only 1 year and opened in 2015. The new bypass aimed to increase daily ship capacity and to reduce waiting times by allowing ships to travel in both directions simultaneously. So with that being said, I would like to end this episode with some numbers. As of today, the Suez Canal attracts about 12 to 15% of the worldwide trade and about 30% of global container traffic, with more than $1 trillion in goods transiting annually. This shows how important the Suez Canal is to global trade. So I would like to thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel for more videos.